Imagine the world's cameras flashing, reporters waiting outside the gates, and the royal PR machine preparing a perfect press release announcing the arrival of a prince. Everything looked polished, controlled, regal. But what if none of it was real? What if the royal birth that was broadcast to billions was nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion, and the truth was buried under layers of palace secrecy, NDAs, and digital erasures? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. That's exactly what Lady Colin Campbell, the fierce and unapologetic socialite known for her razor-sharp tongue and insider access, just hinted in her most explosive interview yet. Her words shook the royal narrative to its core. She didn't just speculate this time. She brought what she claims is proof. Screenshots, internal hospital communications, time-stamped messages from within the very walls where Meghan Markle claimed to have given birth to baby Archie. And here's the kicker. Those emails show no record of her admission. None. Not under her name. Not under her title. Not under any alias that should have been logged for a royal birth. It's as if the Duchess of Sussex never stepped foot in that hospital at all. The silence from Buckingham Palace has been deafening. Not one official statement. Not one rebuttal. Not even the traditional, "We do not comment on private matters." The establishment, it seems, is terrified of acknowledging Lady C's words. Because if she's right, this story could go down as the most audacious deception in modern royal history. But how did it come to this? How did the world, and the most powerful monarchy on earth, get swept up in what might have been the biggest act of royal theater ever staged? Let's rewind. Back in 2019, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were still basking in the glow of global fascination. Meghan was hailed as the breath of fresh air the royal family desperately needed. American, modern, outspoken, and glamorous. When the pregnancy announcement came, the press went into overdrive. The palace carefully choreographed appearances, Meghan's bump became a global spectacle, and every public outing was dissected like a state event. Yet even then, there were whispers. Observant fans began noticing something strange. The bump changed shape. Sometimes it appeared large and round, other times small and high. On one occasion, it seemed to fold unnaturally as she bent down to pick up a dropped flower bouquet. The footage went viral. Memes exploded across social media. Some laughed, others gasped. A few began asking the unthinkable. Could Meghan be faking her pregnancy? The rumors were dismissed as cruel conspiracy theories. The palace ignored them. The press quickly steered the narrative back to glowing headlines and fairy tale moments. But behind the scenes, Lady Colin Campbell, who had already written books exposing the royal secrets, began taking notes. She knew the royal machine too well to ignore inconsistencies. She noticed that the announcement of Archie's birth came hours late. Reporters on standby that morning said they were blindsided. The palace issued one statement claiming Meghan was in labor, then minutes later, another saying she had already delivered a healthy baby boy. How could labor and delivery happen simultaneously, without any media presence or photographic record? No ambulance, no security motorcade, no witness from the press pool, nothing. The mystery deepened when the supposed birth location shifted. Some outlets claimed it was the Portland Hospital in London, others suggested a home birth at Frogmore Cottage. The official records were sealed. The staff refused to comment. And when journalists tried to verify hospital admission logs, they hit an impenetrable wall of privacy protections. For years, this was just speculation, whispers confined to online forums and hushed conversations at royal banquets. But then Lady C struck. Her latest interview, streamed to millions and replayed endlessly on social media, dropped like a thunderclap. Comment first, her tone sharpened as she began reading from her phone. "I have obtained screenshots," she said, "of internal emails exchanged by hospital staff on the very day the Duchess of Sussex was said to have given birth to Archie Harrison Mountbatten-Windsor." She paused, eyes glinting, before continuing. "These communications, and I quote, confirm that no such patient, under any name, was admitted that day." The room went silent. Even the interviewer, a seasoned journalist, struggled to process the claim. Lady C, unfazed, scrolled further and read another excerpt. One nurse asked, "Are we sure we haven't missed an emergency VIP admission?" Another replied, "We checked the entire roster. No Duchess of Sussex. No royal escort. Nothing logged. It was the smoking gun no one expected. The public reaction was instantaneous. Hashtags like hashtag Where Was Meghan and hashtag Lady C leaks began trending worldwide. Royal reporters who once dismissed Lady C as eccentric suddenly started analyzing her claims line by line. Commentators speculated that this could mark the end of Meghan's credibility and possibly trigger a royal crisis larger than Megxit itself. But here's where the story gets darker. Because if Meghan truly wasn't admitted anywhere, then what exactly happened on May 6, 2019? Where was she? Who was there? And most disturbingly, who actually gave birth to Archie? Lady C's tone throughout the interview carried the weight of someone who knew more than she was allowed to say. She hinted that there was a reason she released only screenshots, not the full chain. She mentioned ongoing legal consultations and the need to protect sources. Her eyes betrayed a mix of anger and vindication, as if she had been waiting years to confirm what she already suspected. For the palace, this couldn't have come at a worse time. With the monarchy's reputation still reeling from years of scandal, financial criticism, and growing public skepticism, the last thing they needed was a legitimacy question hanging over a royal child. Yet the longer they stayed silent, the more people began to believe Lady C's version. And Lady C isn't just any gossip columnist. Her aristocratic roots and royal connections run deep. She's hosted charity events attended by princes and dukes, and her social circle overlaps with insiders who've seen royal secrets up close. In short, she's not someone the establishment can easily dismiss. So why leak this now? Why, after years of rumors, did Lady C suddenly go public with evidence? According to her, she had been holding on to it, waiting for the right moment, for the right storm. In her own words, "I knew the palace would bury this story if I spoke too soon. But now, too many people have seen the cracks. The time for silence is over." Her words ignited something. Social media sleuths began digging again, resurfacing old interviews where Meghan contradicted herself about the birth. In one clip, she claimed to have gone into labor at night. In another, she mentioned it happening early morning. In yet another, she appeared confused when asked about the attending doctor. She was wonderful. Very professional," Meghan stammered, failing to name anyone specific. But even beyond the inconsistencies, the biggest question remained unanswered. If Meghan didn't give birth in any hospital, then where did Archie come from? Some theorized that a surrogate was involved, a theory that had circulated since the beginning. Lady C herself had hinted at it years ago, claiming the palace orchestrated a hush arrangement to maintain the illusion of a royal birth. Others speculated the child might have been born overseas and presented later. The possibilities were endless, but all pointed to one truth. Something didn't add up. And what makes Lady C's revelation even more compelling is that she wasn't alone in her findings. Just days after her interview, whispers began to surface from former hospital staff, employees who had long left their posts but still remembered that strange day. One reportedly told a journalist off record, "We were told to prepare for a high-profile patient, but no one ever arrived." Then suddenly, the media announced the royal birth. Everyone looked at each other like, "Wait, did we miss something?" That kind of confusion doesn't happen in royal operations. Royal births are meticulously coordinated, every corridor cleared, every staff member briefed, every nurse signed to confidentiality. For a duchess to slip in and out unnoticed is nearly impossible. So if Lady C's screenshots are real, and many believe they are, this could be the first documented evidence proving that Meghan's pregnancy story was a carefully managed illusion. But what makes this even more fascinating is the emotional core of it all. Because beyond the politics, beyond the royal protocols and media manipulation, there's a human story here, one about image, ambition, and the desperate lengths someone might go to control their narrative. Think about it. A woman once celebrated as the modern-day Diana, breaking barriers, rewriting royal traditions, now stands accused of rewriting reality itself. If Lady C is right, Meghan may have staged the most elaborate act of her career. And if she's wrong, then why hasn't the palace simply proven otherwise with a single hospital statement or official record? The silence speaks louder than any denial. And yet, beneath the headlines and hashtags, there's still more to uncover. Lady C's evidence may only be the beginning. What if there were people inside the hospital who knew exactly what happened and are now ready to talk? What if there are documents, recordings, or logs that escaped the palace's cleanup operation? Because Lady C hinted at that too. There are others, she said cryptically. People who saw things they weren't supposed to see. People who have kept quiet until now. So the question isn't just whether Meghan faked her pregnancy. The real question is, how far did the cover-up go? Who helped her? And what did the royal family stand to gain by keeping quiet? The walls of the royal illusion are cracking, and Lady Colin Campbell might have just swung the first sledgehammer. But before we dive into her evidence, the leaked emails, and the whistleblower who risked everything to speak out, we need to go back to where it all started. To the very day the palace announced Archie's birth, and the timeline that never made sense from the beginning. Because that day holds the first clue to unraveling the biggest royal deception of our time. And what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. It was supposed to be one of the happiest days in modern royal history. The sun had barely risen over London on May 6, 2019, and the global media was already on standby. Television crews had camped outside Windsor for days, anticipating that iconic moment. The easel outside Buckingham Palace, the smiling royal couple, the proud announcement of a new heir. But when the official statement finally dropped, it wasn't joy that rippled through the media. It was confusion. At exactly 2 p.m., Buckingham Palace released a short, carefully worded press note. The Duchess of Sussex went into labor early this morning. The Duke of Sussex is by her side. News outlets scrambled, broadcasting the update worldwide. The British public exhaled. Finally, the big day had come. Except, just 45 minutes later, another statement was issued. The Duchess of Sussex has been delivered of a son. Mother and baby are both healthy. The world blinked. Wait, how could she still be in labor at 2 p.m. and give birth at 2:45 p.m.? There were no media alerts from hospitals, no eyewitnesses, no photographs of ambulances or royal convoys. Even the Queen's doctors, the same ones who had attended Kate Middleton's deliveries, weren't listed anywhere. The first red flag had just been raised, and no one noticed. News anchors stuttered as they read the contradictory statements live. Some laughed it off as a timeline mix-up. Others shrugged. Maybe the palace had pre-written the announcement. But behind the scenes, royal correspondents were whispering in disbelief. One veteran journalist, speaking off-record years later, confessed, "We all knew something was off that day. The timings made no sense. And when we tried to verify, doors slammed shut fast." Even stranger, the official royal easel, a long-standing tradition marking every royal birth since Queen Elizabeth's era, wasn't displayed outside Buckingham Palace until hours later. In royal terms, that's unheard of. The easel announcement usually comes immediately after delivery, verified by the attending doctor's signatures. But this time, there were no doctor signatures at all. Just a vague statement attributed to the Duke and Duchess's medical team. Who were they? Where were they? And why were their names omitted? Let's rewind to how royal births usually happen. When Kate Middleton gave birth to Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, the process was transparent and meticulous. The media knew she was admitted to the Lindo wing of St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington. Security officers escorted her in. Crowds gathered. Hours later, the new royal parents emerged with their newborn, waving to the press. Doctors' names were released. The birth certificate followed standard registration, and the palace provided photographs to ensure authenticity. It was open, controlled, but visible. Now compare that to Meghan's. No photos of her entering any hospital. No security presence at any medical facility. No sighting of royal cars or police escorts. No nurse or staff member who ever publicly confirmed her presence. Not even a single blurry image of a hospital window or stretcher. Nothing. It was a ghost birth. In the days that followed, the palace tried to fill in the blanks. A spokesperson vaguely mentioned that Meghan had given birth at a private hospital in London. Yet, not one hospital confirmed it. Some speculated it was Portland Hospital. Others said it was Frimley Park or even the Lindo wing. But all three facilities quietly denied any comment. An unusual move for institutions that usually take pride in royal associations. Portland Hospital, known for serving celebrities like Victoria Beckham and Sarah Ferguson, became the focus. Reporters flocked there, questioning staff, reviewing security footage, cross-referencing patient logs. But insiders claimed they found no trace of a Duchess of Sussex, nor anyone matching her description, being admitted that weekend. One source allegedly said, "If a royal had delivered here, believe me, we'd all have known." We had no such admission. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry made their first appearance 2 days later, not outside a hospital, but inside the halls of Windsor Castle. The lighting was off, the atmosphere stiff, and the entire event lasted less than 3 minutes. Meghan stood beside Harry, wearing a white trench-style dress, cradling what was said to be baby Archie. But even that moment sparked questions. Sharp-eyed viewers noticed something peculiar. The baby's face was barely visible. His arms didn't move. His skin tone seemed different in different photos. Some even claimed the baby looked older than a newborn. Others speculated the couple used a doll for the brief photo op, citing the rigid way Meghan held the infant. Sound absurd? Maybe. But when every verifiable element of the story vanishes, absurdity starts to sound like logic. Now, here's where the timeline truly collapses. According to the palace, Meghan went into labor in the early morning and delivered the baby shortly after. Yet hospital staff from both Portland and Frimley reported no heightened royal security or lockdown procedures that day. For a royal birth, that's impossible. These facilities are usually placed under a soft lockdown, security sweeps, police coordination, and restricted access. None of that happened. And then came the first major contradiction from Harry himself. During a surprise interview outside Windsor, the new father appeared nervous, even confused. When asked when the baby was born, Harry said, "It was, just a couple hours ago." But that didn't align with the palace's timeline. If Meghan had given birth early this morning, why was Harry saying it had just happened in the afternoon? His words were a tell. That moment, replayed thousands of times online, showed a man improvising under pressure. He smiled awkwardly, looked off camera, and stammered through his lines. Every father says his baby is absolutely to die for, but this little thing is just amazing, he said, using oddly detached phrasing. This little thing. Viewers noticed he never once referred to our son or Meghan's delivery. It was as if the reality hadn't quite synced with the story. Soon after, the palace tried to reassert control. They released the baby's name, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. The announcement came via social media, another break from royal tradition. No framed document, no photo of the Queen's physicians, no formal record, just a casual Instagram post. It was the first time in modern royal history that the birth of a direct royal descendant wasn't formally documented. Journalists demanded details. Who was the attending doctor? What hospital? What time? The palace's response? No comment. That silence only fueled the fire. Within days, online investigators started piecing together inconsistencies. They compared Meghan's final public appearance in late April, when she attended a charity event looking heavily pregnant, with the supposed delivery date barely a week later. Something about her posture, her glow, even her energy seemed off. And when she reappeared with newborn Archie, her figure looked nearly identical. No postpartum recovery signs. No exhaustion. No swelling. Just effortless composure. Doctors weighed in online, noting that postpartum mothers, especially after their first child, often show clear physical markers for days. Meghan, however, appeared completely untouched by childbirth. And then, the most shocking revelation, no official birth certificate was made public for several weeks. Royal births are typically registered within days, but Archie's certificate was delayed, and when it did surface, it contained anomalies. The name Rachel Meghan Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex appeared, but her occupation was listed as Princess of the United Kingdom, a title Meghan never officially held. Moreover, the location of birth, Portland Hospital, was added weeks later after the certificate was amended. Why would a royal document be changed post-publication? The palace claimed it was a clerical adjustment. But royal historians said it was unprecedented. By now, public trust was eroding. Even loyal fans began questioning the secrecy. Was Meghan hiding the hospital for privacy, or hiding the fact that there wasn't one? Why was no footage released of the baby leaving the hospital? Why no nurse testimonials or thank you letters? Something both Diana and Kate had always done. As the months rolled on, the royal narrative started to crack. Meghan and Harry's interviews grew defensive. They criticized media intrusion, yet refused transparency about events that had always been public record for royals. Every question about the birth was brushed aside as private. But the timing of Lady Colin Campbell's new revelations now casts those early inconsistencies in a chilling new light. Because if her leaked emails are authentic, if indeed there were no records of Meghan being admitted anywhere, then all these early anomalies suddenly make perfect sense. That would explain the lack of witnesses, the vague timelines, the conflicting announcements, the rigid baby reveal, the altered birth certificate. Everything, one by one, every piece of the puzzle starts fitting together, and the image it forms isn't the fairy tale the world was sold. It's something else, something carefully constructed, managed, and hidden behind royal protocol and media silence. And perhaps most telling of all, the Queen herself never publicly addressed the birth. She made brief remarks about being delighted, but unlike with previous great-grandchildren, there was no formal statement from her office. No mention of visiting Meghan at the hospital. No photo with the newborn at the scene. Instead, the first image of the Queen with Archie was released later, taken in a private room with oddly subdued lighting and a baby whose features didn't match earlier photos. To the public, it was just another royal picture. To investigators, it was another inconsistency. Because once you notice the timeline doesn't add up, you start seeing cracks everywhere. And that's where Lady Colin Campbell's bombshell enters the story. Her claim isn't just that Meghan wasn't admitted under her real name. It's that no royal birth took place at all, anywhere, under any alias, on May 6, 2019. The emails she possesses, she says, prove that every major hospital that could have hosted a royal birth had no record, no VIP alert, no sealed royal file. If that's true, then the palace's timeline, the very foundation of the royal birth story, collapses. It means the official announcement wasn't just premature. It was entirely fabricated. And if that's the case, one haunting question remains. Where was Meghan Markle during those missing hours between in labor and gave birth? Because someone, somewhere, knows the truth. And one of them, as Lady Colin Campbell has hinted, was inside the hospital system itself, reading those internal communications as the palace's press release hit the airwaves. A whistleblower who saw everything. And what they revealed to Lady C next would blow the story wide open and leave the palace scrambling for answers. But what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. It started like any other interview. Polite smiles, a glass of water on the table, and the faint hum of studio lights. Lady Colin Campbell sat with the composure of someone who had been through this dance 100 times. Elegant but fierce, she wore her signature pearls and that unmistakable air of aristocratic defiance. Yet beneath her calm surface, you could sense it, something brewing, something explosive. When the host introduced her segment as a conversation about royal transparency, Lady C gave a faint, knowing smirk. The kind that says, you have no idea what's about to hit you. Lady Colin, the interviewer began carefully. You've been vocal about inconsistencies in the narrative surrounding Meghan Markle's pregnancy and Archie's birth. But are you now suggesting there's proof the event didn't happen as reported? The silence was electric. Lady C took a breath, leaned forward slightly, and said, "Oh, my dear, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating it." And just like that, the royal world tilted on its axis. Her words weren't speculation. They were a declaration. With the coolness of a courtroom prosecutor, Lady C reached into her handbag, pulled out her phone, and said something no one expected to hear on live television. "I have the receipts." The host blinked. Receipts. Screenshots, she clarified. Internal emails. Dated May 6, 2019. The very day Meghan Markle was said to have been admitted to hospital for the birth of her son. The host's posture stiffened. The production crew exchanged looks behind the cameras. Everyone knew Lady Colin Campbell was infamous for her bluntness, but this was new territory. This wasn't rumor. This was evidence. Lady C tilted her phone toward the host. You can read it yourself. The email chain begins early that morning. It's from a senior administrator at one of the hospitals the media speculated about, the very same hospital the palace hinted was involved. She adjusted her glasses and began to read aloud. Her voice carried that aristocratic lilt, sharp, deliberate, each word landing like a gavel. "Are we certain there's no royal admission scheduled for today?" "Affirmative." No Duchess of Sussex listed, no royal security flagged, and no private suite reserved under the Windsor alias. The host's jaw tensed. Are you saying? I'm saying, Lady C interrupted, that the hospital in question, and I will not name it for legal reasons, had no record, no paperwork, no trace of Meghan Markle, Rachel Markle, or the Duchess of Sussex being admitted that day. Then she leaned back and added, and this is not just one hospital. The air left the room. The interviewer stammered. Wait, you mean? 3 facilities, Lady C said, cutting him off again. I've verified this with multiple insiders. The palace story, the supposed labor, the healthy boy, the press releases, none of it corresponds with reality. There was no such patient, and every record system confirms it. Her tone was cold, resolute. You could almost hear the collective gasp across the internet as the clip began circulating seconds after broadcast. Twitter lit up. Royal watchers, journalists, and skeptics flooded timelines with shock and disbelief. Within hours, hashtag #LadyCReceipts and hashtag #WhereWasMeghan were trending across multiple platforms. But the real shockwave came not from her claims. It came from the calm precision with which she delivered them. Lady C wasn't ranting. She wasn't theorizing. She was reporting. She spoke like someone who had done her homework, double-checked her facts, and dared anyone to challenge her. And that's what made it terrifying for the palace. Because when Lady Colin Campbell talks, people listen, and not because she's loud, but because she's connected. For decades, she's moved within the circles of nobility, dining with dukes, hosting charity galas, and maintaining a Rolodex that includes half of Britain's titled elite. She's the person who can pick up the phone and reach someone inside Clarence House or Kensington Palace, not through gossip, but through friendship. And when she says she has sources, she means it. The host, realizing the gravity of the moment, tried to maintain composure. Lady Colin, these are very serious allegations. Are you not concerned about legal repercussions? Lady C smiled, that mischievous, cat who ate the canary smile. My dear, truth is not defamatory. The audience erupted in nervous laughter, unsure whether to clap or hold their breath. Then she dropped the next bombshell. These communications, she continued, were shared with me by someone within the hospital network, someone who has access to internal data. They risked everything to show me what they found because they could no longer live with the lie. The host pressed, and you've verified this? I've cross-referenced dates, email headers, and timestamps, she replied. Everything aligns perfectly with the timeline of the supposed birth. And let me tell you something else. One of the emails specifically mentions staff confusion over media reports claiming a royal birth occurred that morning. They were asking each other, did we miss something? Her tone hardened. You cannot miss a royal birth. It's not possible. You cannot erase it, you cannot conceal it, and you certainly cannot fabricate it. The words landed like thunder. Then she turned directly to the camera, eyes sharp, voice low. If the palace has evidence to the contrary, I invite them to produce it. It was an open challenge. That night, social media erupted. Clips of the segment spread like wildfire, with millions of views within hours. Comment sections filled with disbelief and fury. If this is true, it's the biggest royal scandal since Edward VIII, one user wrote. Another said, Lady C is no fool. If she's saying this, she's got backup. The palace, true to form, said nothing. But that silence only made Lady C's words echo louder. In the days that followed, snippets of the email she referenced began to circulate online, blurry screenshots, redacted names, but enough to show authenticity. The metadata matched the alleged hospital's internal format. The timestamps corresponded exactly to the day and time of Meghan's supposed labor. One of the leaked excerpts read, media outlets are requesting confirmation regarding a high-profile delivery. We have no record of such a patient, nor any flagged security protocols. Another followed minutes later. Are we missing a VIP alias? Cross-check with private suite registry. Still no match. Proceeding with standard day shift rotation. That's not how hospitals behave during a royal delivery. Normally, VIP suites are locked down, and every nurse signs a non-disclosure acknowledgement. Yet according to these emails, it was just another ordinary day. No royal convoy, no commotion, no special preparations. That alone was enough to make even skeptics pause. Because if Meghan truly had delivered at that facility, there should have been something, an alias, a sealed note, a doctor's alert, anything. But Lady C claimed there was nothing. And that, she said, was the most damning evidence of all. During a follow-up interview the next morning, she doubled down. "You see, my dear," she told a different host, "I'm not here to destroy anyone. I'm here to expose deception." And the deception began when the palace announced a birth that, by all accounts, didn't occur. The interviewer asked if she was implying surrogacy. Lady C didn't flinch. "I'm implying that the narrative was falsified. As to how Archie came into existence, that's for others to explain." The way she said it sent chills down spines. She knew more, but she was holding back. Why? That's where the real intrigue began. Rumors spread that Lady C had been approached by more than one insider. People close to the royal medical team, individuals within the hospital administration, even a private investigator hired to monitor VIP admissions that week. Supposedly, they all confirmed the same thing: no trace of Meghan's delivery. And what's more, one of them provided digital correspondence that matched the tone and structure of the emails Lady C read on air. In private royal circles, panic ensued. Senior aides reportedly scrambled to contain the fallout, quietly briefing lawyers and calling in favors from editors to suppress the clip's circulation. But it was too late. The internet had already immortalized it. Meanwhile, Lady C's critics tried to discredit her, labeling her a sensationalist, a royal troublemaker, even a liar. But those attacks only made her more defiant. "When truth threatens power," she said in one fiery response, "power calls it madness." The beauty of Lady C's delivery lay in its restraint. She never shouted. She never sensationalized. She didn't need to. Her calm made it more terrifying. You could feel the weight of decades of royal observation behind every syllable. Viewers could tell this wasn't just gossip. This was a reckoning. And somewhere, in the middle of all this, a quiet storm began to form online. Former hospital staff reaching out to journalists, anonymous posts on private forums, whispers about a file that was deleted, and a supervisor who raised concerns. Lady C hinted at that in the closing moments of her interview. When asked whether she feared retaliation, she smirked again. "I'm not afraid of the truth. The truth has its own protection. And soon enough, you'll hear from someone who was actually there." That line changed everything. Because if she was referring to a whistleblower, someone from inside the hospital system who had firsthand knowledge, then her claims weren't just explosive, they were verifiable. The internet lit up again, trying to identify who this mysterious insider could be. Bloggers dug through old staff directories, LinkedIn pages, and archived job listings. Within hours, theories emerged: a nurse, a records officer, an administrator, someone who had seen the logs and realized what was missing. The idea that a royal cover-up could unravel from within, not by tabloids, but by an everyday worker who refused to lie, electrified the story. And for Lady C, this was the moment she had been waiting for. Her reputation, long defined by controversy, now carried the glow of vindication. The woman who once warned of Meghan's manipulation was suddenly being hailed as the whistleblower's messenger, the one person bold enough to say what others wouldn't. Yet, even as the interview ended, she left the audience with a haunting question. "What if," she said slowly, "the real reason the palace has never refuted these claims is because they can't?" The host asked, "Can't? Or won't?" Lady C smiled faintly. "Same difference, darling. That's when you realize." She knew more than she said on camera. Perhaps names. Perhaps proof she wasn't ready to release yet. Perhaps something that could confirm the story beyond question. And in the hours following that interview, one name began to surface. An insider who had allegedly seen those internal emails firsthand, who had worked within the hospital at the time, and who had quietly reached out to Lady C months earlier. A whistleblower who knew the truth about that missing royal record. And when their account finally surfaced, it would reveal the most chilling details yet. Details even Lady Colin Campbell hadn't dared to say aloud on television. But what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. At first, no one believed the insider even existed. For days, Lady Colin Campbell's cryptic hint, "You'll hear from someone who was actually there," had become the heartbeat of speculation across the internet. Journalists, bloggers, and amateur sleuths dissected every frame of her interview, trying to find a clue, a name, a gender, a region, anything. And then, quietly, An anonymous message appeared on a secure discussion forum known for whistleblower leaks. The account was new, created just hours before posting. The username? Registrar Nurse 79. The message was short, almost cautious. I was on the administrative staff rotation at the hospital mentioned in Lady C's interview. Everything she said was true. Meghan Markle's name was never on our books. That single post sent a digital shockwave through Royal Watch communities. Screenshots spread across social media faster than tabloids could refresh their headlines. People asked, was this the whistleblower Lady C referred to? Or just another internet faker riding the storm? But within hours, the poster returned, this time attaching something more convincing, a redacted internal shift log. The timestamp matched May 6, 2019. The header bore the hospital's official logo. It listed all VIP patient admissions that day. And there it was, rows of names, codes, departments, but no Duchess of Sussex. No Rachel Markle. No royal alias. Nothing. The post ended with 5 haunting words. We waited. She never came. To understand the gravity of this, you have to know how hospitals handle royal births. Everything, from the security protocols to the privacy systems, is built around meticulous control. The moment a royal's name appears in the system, alarms go off in administration. Privacy locks activate. Only a handful of authorized personnel gain access. NDAs are triggered instantly. But on May 6th, none of those systems were activated. Not one. A few hours later, a journalist from a major British tabloid, one who had been investigating inconsistencies in the birth story for years, confirmed that the metadata on the document looked authentic. This isn't something you fake easily, he said. These formats, headers, and timestamp chains are impossible to reproduce without insider access. And that's when the whistleblower broke silence entirely. The next day, they gave an anonymous interview via an encrypted connection to an independent online outlet. Their voice was distorted, their identity hidden, but their recollection was razor-sharp. That morning was like any other, the voice said. We'd been told for weeks that the Duchess of Sussex would be delivering at one of our sister facilities. Preparations had been discussed. We even had security rehearsals. Then nothing. Silence. They went on. We expected a notice. It always comes through admin when a high-profile patient is on the way. But the list was empty. No entry. No lockout command. By noon, we realized it wasn't happening. Then, out of nowhere, the media announced she was in labor. 30 minutes later, she had given birth. Everyone in the building looked around like, wait, what? Imagine that moment. You're sitting at your desk, knowing the hospital is supposed to be hosting one of the biggest royal events in years. The press is reporting it as fact, yet your internal system shows nothing. No patient file, no doctor assignment, no birth registration. That's when panic began to ripple through the staff. The whistleblower described it vividly. One of our supervisors called IT. She thought maybe the record had been entered under a confidential alias. That sometimes happens for privacy. But IT said no. They ran a system-wide scan across all VIP protocols. There was nothing. When asked if there could have been a manual override, someone deliberately hiding the record, the whistleblower shook their head. Not possible. Even the Queen's personal physician can't bypass the system without leaving a digital footprint. And there was no footprint. What they said next sent chills through the interviewer. We were told to stop asking questions. That's when I knew something wasn't right. According to the whistleblower, about 2 days later, a closed-door meeting was held with senior staff. Phones were collected at the door. The message from above was simple. If anyone asks about a royal birth, you saw nothing, you know nothing. It was the kind of statement that sends a cold shiver down your spine. Not a clarification, not a denial, but a command. The whistleblower admitted that this was the moment they began documenting everything. I started saving my shift logs, internal memos, and any communication that could later prove I wasn't crazy. When I saw Lady Colin Campbell's interview years later, I knew someone finally had the courage to bring it forward. When pressed on whether they had ever seen Meghan Markle personally at the facility, the whistleblower didn't hesitate. Never. Not once. No sighting by any nurse, no entry badge scans, no royal security detail. I even checked the external security sign-in. There was no royal motorcade log that entire day. That revelation contradicted the official royal narrative completely. According to Buckingham Palace, Meghan was supported by her husband and a trusted team of doctors during a private hospital delivery. But if this whistleblower was telling the truth, that team didn't exist, at least not within any hospital walls. The interviewer asked, could she have delivered elsewhere? The voice paused. Maybe, but not in any of the facilities listed on the royal register. And if she gave birth at home, then the palace deliberately misled the public about hospital care. Either way, it's deception. And deception, in the royal world, is unforgivable. That same night, Lady Colin Campbell resurfaced on her YouTube channel. For once, her usual playful tone was replaced by quiet gravity. I've been contacted by the person you've all been talking about, she said. They have shared enough to convince me they were there. What they've provided matches the documents I already had. This confirms my position. The Duchess of Sussex was never admitted. She didn't name them. She didn't show the evidence. But her voice carried absolute conviction. That video racked up millions of views within 24 hours. The internet exploded again. People demanded answers. The palace remained silent. Meanwhile, the whistleblower went further. In a follow-up message to the journalist, they described the strange behavior of administrators in the weeks after the supposed birth. Suddenly, data audits were happening every day. System logs were being cleaned. Some of us noticed files missing from earlier dates. It was like someone was rewriting history. Then came the most unsettling statement of all. A file was created retroactively, 2 weeks later. It appeared suddenly in the records system under an administrative code that didn't exist before. The entry was marked as Royal Maternity Case, authorized access only. When we opened it, it contained no patient data, no timestamp, nothing but a placeholder entry. It was a digital ghost. A fake record, made to appear as proof, but containing nothing verifiable. When that revelation reached Lady Colin Campbell, she reportedly told her producer, "That's the smoking gun." They tried to backfill the record after the fact. The whistleblower's story, though hidden behind anonymity, felt too detailed to dismiss. Every description, the hospital corridors, the admin protocols, the exact timing of system updates, aligned with verifiable procedure. Even a former NHS IT specialist confirmed, you can't forge that kind of insider detail unless you've worked there. As the story grew, so did the risk. Whispers emerged that the hospital's legal department had launched an internal investigation trying to identify the leak. Some staff members were reportedly questioned. Others suddenly went on leave. The whistleblower vanished from public contact soon after. Their account deleted. Their digital traces erased. But not before they left one final message. Truth doesn't disappear when you delete it. It just waits to be found again. That line hit hard. It became a rallying cry among those who believed Lady C's claims. The hashtag truth waits to be found started trending globally. The timing couldn't have been worse for Meghan and Harry. At that exact moment, their public image was already under strain, business deals faltering, documentaries criticized, and their relationship with the royals at an all-time low. And now this? A credible whistleblower suggesting the royal birth story, the very foundation of their modern fairy tale, was a lie? It was a public relations nightmare. Mainstream outlets hesitated to touch the story at first, wary of defamation risks. But independent journalists didn't care. They ran with it. Reports surfaced connecting the whistleblower's testimony with Lady C's screenshots. The timestamps matched. The formatting matched. Even the internal email subject lines were consistent across both sources. And that's when it became clear Lady Colin Campbell wasn't bluffing. She had real evidence. One royal insider, speaking under anonymity, told a paper, "If this is true, it means someone inside the palace fabricated a timeline and manipulated official communications. That's not just unethical, it's a constitutional crisis." The mere suggestion that a royal birth, a matter of national record, could have been falsified was unthinkable. Births within the royal line are logged in the court circular, a historical archive dating back centuries. They're considered matters of state. To fake one would be to deceive not just Britain, but the Commonwealth itself. And yet, if Lady C and the whistleblower were correct, that's exactly what happened. But here's the most intriguing part. The whistleblower's evidence pointed to a secondary event, something the public didn't know about. A last-minute request, allegedly from royal staff, asking for a private suite to be prepared for inspection, though no patient was ever brought in. It was a setup, a show, a piece of theater meant to create the illusion that Meghan had been there. The suite was cleaned, prepped, photographed internally, then left empty. A performance for the record, not for reality. That was the final straw for the whistleblower. I realized then that everything was smoke and mirrors, they said. The entire narrative was constructed, and no one, not the doctors, not the staff, not even the public, was ever meant to know. That's why Lady Colin Campbell's interview hit like a bomb. Because for the first time, someone from inside the royal birth narrative had cracked the silence. Someone who had seen the data, touched the system, and knew that no royal baby entered that world through any hospital door on that fateful day. The walls around the palace's secret were crumbling, and Lady C had the wrecking ball. But as shocking as this was, the next revelation would cut even deeper. Because while the world was still reeling from the whistleblower's testimony, another twist emerged. A rumor that Meghan Markle hadn't just hidden her hospital admission, but had used a completely different name altogether. An alias. And when investigators started looking for it, what they found changed everything, and no one saw it coming. The whistleblower's words were still echoing across every corner of the internet when a new theory began to take shape. One so strange, it almost sounded like something out of a spy thriller. If Meghan Markle's name was never found in any hospital registry, maybe it wasn't missing at all. Maybe it was hidden. After all, royal births are often protected under layers of pseudonyms for security reasons. Diana used them. Kate did too. It's standard practice. But here's the problem. Those aliases are always logged, traceable, and later verified by court records or official archives. They're secret in the moment, but they never vanish. They leave a paper trail. Meghan's didn't. And that's what made this theory so haunting. It began with an investigative blogger who called herself Brit Monarch Files. She had followed every twist of the Meghan saga from day one, analyzing flight logs, scheduling discrepancies, and hospital security leaks. But one night, she stumbled on something odd, a record from the same hospital Lady C had referenced, showing a private maternity reservation under the name R.M. Windsor. The initials were eerily familiar. Rachel Meghan Windsor, Meghan Markle's full legal name after marriage. The reservation was dated May 5th, the day before Archie's supposed birth. It was marked cancelled, patient and no-show. That single entry sent shockwaves through the Royal Watcher community. Could it be the alias Meghan had used to mask her identity? And if so, why was it cancelled? The blogger shared the find on social media. Within hours, Lady Colin Campbell herself weighed in during a live stream. Her response was cryptic but telling. "Let's just say," she said, smiling faintly, "you're looking in the right direction." Her tone carried that glint of insider knowledge. She knew something she wasn't ready to spell out. Theories multiplied overnight. Some argued the alias was set up in advance to create the illusion of a hospital birth. Paperwork filed, room reserved, security briefed, but Meghan never showed up. The palace could then use the existence of the reservation as proof of her hospital involvement, while conveniently avoiding an actual admission. Others speculated that the alias was used at a different facility altogether, possibly outside London, and then erased afterward. But the timeline didn't fit. The press releases, Lady C's leaked emails, and the whistleblower's testimony all aligned too precisely. The simplest explanation was also the most damning. Meghan never intended to give birth there at all. Instead, someone, whether Meghan, the palace, or a PR strategist, had created an illusion of a hospital stay that never occurred. One royal historian, interviewed anonymously, put it bluntly. It would have been the perfect decoy. Reserve a suite under an alias. Let the hospital prepare, but don't show up. Meanwhile, somewhere else, something entirely different happens, and the media will never know the difference. But then came an even more chilling discovery. A nurse from the hospital, who contacted the same blogger privately, confirmed that she had seen the RM. Windsor booking on the internal system. "We prepared the suite for a high-profile patient," she said. "We had been told it was sensitive. But the next morning, everything was canceled. We were told to clear the room, destroy temporary files, and forget about it." Destroy temporary files. Forget about it. Those words, on their own, would have been disturbing enough. But what came next turned the story from unsettling to sinister. The nurse continued. "About a week later, a supervisor came in with printed documents and asked us to sign a confidentiality form. I'd signed them before for celebrity patients, but this one was different. It explicitly mentioned the Duchess of Sussex, even though no one had been admitted under that name." When asked why she thought they were made to sign it, the nurse replied quietly, "Because the story had already gone public, and they needed the illusion to stay intact." It was covered up by paperwork. Lady Colin Campbell later addressed this revelation in a follow-up interview. Her words were icy. "It's one thing to use an alias. It's another to erase the evidence afterward. If this was merely a case of mistaken paperwork, why destroy it? Why silence the staff?" She had a point. Transparency is the backbone of royal legitimacy. The crown thrives on ceremony, on ritual, on documentation. To falsify or obscure something as fundamental as a royal birth isn't just deception, it's desecration of tradition. And then, almost poetically, fate handed Lady C her next piece of evidence. Someone, an anonymous sender using an encrypted email, forwarded her what appeared to be a handwritten signature form. It was blurry but legible enough to read the name, R.M. Windsor. Underneath was a patient consent signature. Only, it didn't match Meghan Markle's handwriting. Lady C revealed this detail subtly during a later segment. "I've seen the handwriting," she said. "And let's just say, whoever signed that document was not the Duchess of Sussex." The implications were staggering. If the signature was forged, it meant someone had gone out of their way to fabricate the alias record, perhaps to give the palace plausible deniability. A fake reservation under a real-sounding alias, canceled before scrutiny could begin. Enough to create smoke, but not enough to prove fire. Royal experts began dissecting the meaning behind R.M. Windsor. Was it an official pseudonym authorized by the palace? Or a clumsy creation by someone within Meghan's team? The answer mattered, because if it came from Meghan's side, it could indicate deliberate deceit. If it came from the palace, it pointed to institutional complicity. Both scenarios were explosive. But what made the R.M. Windsor alias even more suspicious was how it aligned with Lady C's leaked hospital emails. One message, dated just before the alleged birth, read, "Reminder, room prepared for scheduled high-profile delivery. Alias patient R.M. Windsor. Confirm security." The response came minutes later. "Security postponed until confirmation from Palace. Hold suite pending update." And then, 2 hours later, reservation canceled. No further action required. It was all there. The timeline, the alias, the cancellation. The fake scaffolding of a royal birth that never took place. But perhaps the most disturbing part was what the cancellation triggered. According to sources within the hospital's IT division, every file linked to R.M. Windsor was deleted within minutes of the cancellation notice. Normally, canceled bookings are archived automatically for audit. In this case, the metadata showed a manual deletion, an action that required administrative override and a secondary password, meaning someone with high-level clearance ordered those files purged. Who had that kind of access? Not a nurse, not a receptionist, only senior administrators or external authorities acting under instruction. The deeper investigators dug, the more the trail seemed to lead away from hospital walls and into royal corridors. One retired staff member even suggested that the deletion order came after a phone call from someone representing the royal household. Lady Colin Campbell hinted at the same thing in her next video. "Let's just say," she said with a wry smirk, "when the palace calls, people tend to forget how to say no." But here's where things took a truly bizarre turn. A private investigator, reportedly hired by a foreign news outlet to verify the alias trail, claimed to have found a digital fingerprint. The canceled R.M. Windsor booking reappeared momentarily in a backup database weeks later during a system maintenance cycle. It contained a single attachment, a scanned ID labeled Temporary Patient Registration Form. The ID image was heavily pixelated but showed a face that, according to analysts, was not Meghan Markle's. When Lady Colin Campbell was asked about this discovery, she refused to comment directly. But in one cryptic statement, she said, "When the truth comes out, people will finally understand why this entire charade was necessary and who it was meant to protect." That line left audiences reeling. Who it was meant to protect? Was she implying Meghan wasn't the mastermind of the deception, but the product of it? That perhaps the palace orchestrated the illusion for its own reasons? Maybe to maintain an image, or to conceal something far larger. The theories grew darker by the day. Some believed the fake alias and missing records pointed to surrogacy, that the palace wanted to present Archie as a natural heir, born of royal blood, to avoid constitutional chaos. Others suspected something more political, that Meghan's pregnancy was used as a PR tool to distract from other royal scandals brewing at the time. But whichever version you believed, one truth was becoming unavoidable: the R.M. Windsor file was real, it was tampered with, and it was deleted on purpose. And as one anonymous royal aide reportedly told a journalist, "You don't erase what you're proud of." By now, the story had reached a fever pitch. The palace's silence had turned from strategy to suspicion. Reporters began hounding official spokespeople for comment, only to receive the same empty phrase: "We do not discuss private medical matters." But this wasn't private anymore. It was historical. It was constitutional. And while the palace stonewalled, Lady C only grew bolder. "You see," she told her audience, "they can erase files, they can silence staff, but they cannot rewrite the truth." The alias existed. The booking was canceled. The record was purged. And that is not speculation, that is evidence. Her calm certainty was terrifying in its own way. It wasn't the tone of someone guessing. It was the tone of someone waiting for the final piece of the puzzle to fall into place. And it was about to. Because as Lady C hinted in her closing remarks that week, the R.M. Windsor discovery wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning. "When you understand why the alias was used," she said, "you'll understand the entire deception." And that revelation begins with one photo, taken by mistake, buried by panic, and leaked by someone who couldn't live with the lie. The mysterious photo that no one was supposed to see. And that, once uncovered, would finally reveal where Meghan really was on the day the world believed she was giving birth. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming.